Australia is the world's second largest exporter of thermal coal, providing 20% of the global market. China is the world's biggest consumer, accounting for more than half of all coal exports, followed by India and the US. But the global body overseeing energy security, the International Energy Agency, predicts a 90% plunge in demand for coal by 2050. Mining giants such as BHP and Rio Tinto have also signalled long-term plans to get out of thermal coal. The IEA says moving away from coal as the world's leading energy source is crucial for countries to meet their net zero emissions by 2050 target. That transition won't be painless. The agency predicts the fossil fuel industry will lose 5 million jobs, but it also forecasts 14 million new jobs in renewable energy industries. Dr. Fatih Birol is the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. Dr. Birol, the Australian government announced last week that it was going to fund a major gas-fired power plant. What's the IEA's view of the argument that a transitional fuel is necessary to bridge the gap between coal and renewable energy until renewables are cheaper and more reliable?
So when we look around the world, we see that many governments, from US to Europe to Japan, China, they all want to have a net zero emission energy sector, which means we have to decarbonize how we generate electricity, how we run our cars, how we also run our industry. So there is a lot of investments going on in clean energy, but this doesn't mean that from today to tomorrow there will be no gas or oil will be used. These are specific investment decisions that governments and the investors are taking, the ones that you have mentioned. But there is a lot of risk here, whether or not there will be a market to buy that gas or coal and the others. And of course, there may be a reward as well as in the other investment decisions. But I am seeing there is a strong momentum around the world now. Around the world, developed and developing countries to push clean energy technologies, starting with renewable energies.
Will Australia be able to meet a target like net zero by 2050 if it does rely on gas as a transitional technology?
I expect the Australian government, I understood from Prime Minister's speech at the Mr. Biden, President Biden's Climate Leaders Summit, that Australia is planning to come up with a net zero goal, and I am looking forward to see what are the policy legs of that forthcoming net zero emission target of Australia. And here we will still have some gas and coal, but there is a critical technology here, carbon capture and storage. Not only for Australia, but in the world. When we look at our report we published last week, when I look at those numbers, in the absence of a contribution from carbon capture and storage, we have very limited chances to reach our climate goals, if any. So therefore, I believe while Australia looks at its gas and coal reserves and their future, one aspect to take into account is the future of carbon capture and storage technologies, for which your country can be a global leader.
You talked earlier about the momentum around the world. We frequently hear countries talk up their commitments on climate change, but when you look at developed countries, does the rhetoric match the policy reality?
There is a growing gap between the rhetoric and the real life. More and more countries come up with the targets, but when we look at the numbers, for example, this year, global emissions will increase substantially, which will be the second largest increase in the history. The reason why we came up with this report is to show the governments, it is good that you come up with these targets, but what does it mean in the real world? What kind of consequences in the energy sector? What needs to be done? Of course, I appreciate those governments come up with those serious targets for 2050, but how to reach those targets are more important for me than setting the target alone.
Dr. Birol, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.